Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say welcome on the weekend. We appreciate you coming to this discussion. It is high level, just part of the audience that we have. Welcoming you. My name is Penifas Miranda. I'm from the Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation, and I'm your moderator, or if you like, facilitator for this discussion. We'll be looking at or discussing the topic of entrepreneurship at different levels. And I would like this folks to introduce our high-level panel. Right next to me, on my left, is Nakola Kajui, who is director of WECREATE. And to my right is Mr. Eric Schultz, he was the president of Zambia. Seated on my left is Mr. Mlinga Soto, who is deputy minister in the State House. Also joining us on this panel is Mr. Tobias Rasmussen, who is the resident representative of IMF, and he's sitting on my right. Welcome. Seated next to him is our former vice president, and he also did take up the position of acting president. This is Dr. Guys. Welcome to this discussion. I'd also like to introduce Professor Oliver Sasa, who is also joining us on this discussion is Rosetta Chavala, who is Managing Director and Country Manager for the Digital Communications of Zambia. And last but not least is Mr. Mukula Makasa, who is Director Enterprise Development. Welcome to this discussion. So to kickstart our discussion, and just before we actually get into the details of it, I'll give you a quick overview of how we'll proceed. We'll have some introductory statements from our panel, and thereafter we'll have some questions from you, our esteemed audience, and we'll keep exchanging from our audience questions and also our panelists giving their positions on the different topics that we will address with the one we are discussing today. So to just start our conversation, I'll invite Nakola from WECREATE to pretty much say the word.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, panelists. I'm from WECREATE Zambia. WECREATE Zambia is an entrepreneurial center for women that are starting businesses. We're working with startups, as well as women who are in existing businesses. And the center basically offers various tools and resources that provide supportive mechanisms for women that are looking to take their businesses to another level. As we all know very well, entrepreneurship has the potential to address a lot of challenges being faced by nations. And in Zambia being a growing economy, I think needs a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. So We Create Zambia Center is connecting women in business by exposing them to networking opportunities that allow them to lead, make a lead in terms of contributing to the national economy. Entrepreneurship, as we know, has the potential to address challenges such as inequality in incomes, rural poverty, unemployment, and many other challenges that are faced. As you may be aware, according to the latest Global Entrepreneurship Index, Zambia has been ranked at 110 out of 130 countries that have been assessed in terms of how strong their entrepreneurial ecosystems are. And some of the reasons that why we rank so low as a country are including lack of education and training, as well as skills development, and also low technology. So I think as a country, we need to relook at conditions that will ensure the harnessing of entrepreneurship programs, particularly also for women, as women have got a very large role, to play in terms of contributing to the national economy. So I'm happy that we're having this discussion, and I hope really that the discussion will lead us into opportunities, identification of opportunities that will allow for this country to develop a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. for the opening statement. And just to follow up, have any master keys on
Okay. So I guess we're kind of co-hosting this with Angula, which is why I need to take a few seconds. Probably social statement as and obviously, since I'm an American diplomat, I'm not allowed to speak extemporaneously. Written out, so my comments. So let me start by saying that one of the key moments of President Obama's recent trip to Africa in July was when he attended the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. I just people who attended that summit, kind of at our invitation. So it's when you look at the broad brush of American policy towards Africa and what President Obama is trying to accomplish, one of the key things is to really energize and enable the African private sector to drive growth, and that's really the point of the Entrepreneurship Summit. He specifically cited in his comments the WECREATE Center, which we actually helped set up, and which we kind of, I guess, midway for Godfather. So I've been to Cuckoo Compound a number of times, and frankly, I have to say that every time I go there, I'm kind of overwhelmed by the spirit of the place. All of these women who are really energized, wanting to kind of create a business and improve their lives. And it's really that candid spirit, not solely for women, but really for the entire country, that I think of as the essence of entrepreneurship, that desire to just really make your life better and create a business from scratch, to create jobs, to drive growth. One of the things that we're going to do in the very near future is that we're going to collaborate with WECREATE to have what we're calling the Zambian Entrepreneurship Summit in Cuckoo Compound in November. Most all of you, I assume, will be invited to that as well. The idea is to kind of put these entrepreneurs, not just women, but entrepreneurs in general, together with potential investors, people who might be interested in helping them get their ideas up and running. So, I said it a number of times publicly, and to be as most recently said it, that Zambia is a country with a great economic potential. Potential, yeah. Tried talking a long time ago, I was never supposed to use that word, but it's my emphasis. So. greatest resource that Zambia has, among its many resources, is actually its people, and in particular its young people who have that spirit of entrepreneurship that really just needs to be allowed freedom to express itself and to take an idea, to take a risk, and to see their dreams realized. For that to happen, we think that there needs to be an open, conducive business climate that gives them the opportunity to succeed. And that's what the Zambia government is doing. Nambula mentioned the World Bank's ease of doing business ranking. It's a very crude measure, frankly, and lots of countries kind of quibble over their ranking. But the trend in Zambia is pretty clear. It's gotten worse over time. And so you could say maybe we don't deserve to be 110. So the reality is that 5 years ago we were in the 60s, 70s, something like that. So in point of fact, it's gotten harder. It's unquestionably true that it's gotten harder to do business in Zambia in recent years. And that's a trend that needs to be reversed. For entrepreneurship to succeed, at least we think so, that's a trend that the government should want to change. I gave this speech at UNZA not too long ago, where I sort of said my vision, the American vision of how the economy should work, and what the government's role in vision. And since we're going to kind of speak frankly, things out and have a discussion, I'll just repeat that, which is we don't think the government should play a particularly significant role in the economy. It certainly shouldn't be involved in the productive aspects of the economy. The government's job is to create the foundation for a successful economy: the roads, the ports, the airports, power grid, things like that. The government has a role in that, and it has a role in regulating the economy to ensure that they behave themselves, that they're doing things the right way, and protecting really the resources of the country the best way possible. But I don't actually personally think the government, for instance, should be set up as profits, whatever they might be. And I would also argue that if you look at recent history, countries that have been successful economically, that sort of jumped the table, these are not countries that have state corporation mentality. These are the countries that have allowed the private sector to take a lead and to drive growth. And I really truly do believe in Zambia's long-term economic potential. I think of all the countries on the African continent, it's one of the ones that has the best prospects of being what I guess the term we are now is an African lion, maybe, since you don't have the tigers in Africa. So anyway, we're here today, I think, really to talk about what the enabling environment needs to look like in Zambia, what needs to change, what can stay the same, and I think at this point it's time to hear from people who knows this economy a lot better than I do. So thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. And for the next remarks, I'd like to invite Dr. Scott to issue his opening comments.
4 years ago, I decided to ban those copper clocks. You know, the ones made in the shape of the map of Zambia, with an elephant coming out on one side and the time rocking heading in the other spot. Because I was worried that it was going to inconvenience some Zambian workers. So I took my motorcade in those days, my place is very fast. Went down to the copper clock shop and had a look around, and there it was. It was just a shop with a big warehouse full of copper clocks with elephants and things. And all made in Zimbabwe. Even that quintessentially Zambian thing, a copper clock. We are talking about adding value to copper. People adding value to copper are in Zimbabwe. And they are sending to get the value from us to pay them. So I felt very reassured, and I proceeded with my plan, and I said it has to be the Zambian artwork by a living Zambian artist who we gifted these. The only people who didn't like my artwork idea were the North Koreans. On the typical Zambian township picture, there were something like 4 or 5 criminal offences being committed in the way of putting rubbish around, drinking outside hours. And in North Korea, there's none of that. So I took a spare copper clock and I left it. That's that. But I think we have to start with the very basic failures that we are suffering. I mean, I went to buy some, what do you call those wooden slots or studs, parquet flooring the other day. And the guy tells me quite openly, it's from Zimbabwe, Zambian wood. But we sent them over, they make it, they sent it up to us, it's much cheaper. So I think we have to start by acknowledging we have a problem. And we have to try and find out what the problem is. Yes, I know historically South Africa was the big engineering area. Zimbabwe was the smaller engineering area, and Zambia was the backyard of Zimbabwe. But that's 50 years ago. We can't still be saying that our job is to produce the copper and the labor, because they don't want your labor. It was okay in the old days when Ella used to come to collect the Negros from the Western Province and take them to go and mine gold. But those days are over. You can't even sell labor. We don't sell copper. And the quality of our copper is dropped below 1%. And it's pretty difficult to get out, as you can see. So I've been looking around. Mark O'Donnell was kind enough to pick me up the other day and say, come and see the entrance. We went to see the entrance, 2,000 hectares of very heavily capitalized infrastructure. I mean, big wide roads, 4-lane roads, power lines everywhere. I don't know if you saw that movie called Backstage. This guy wanders around in the bush in Texas. Power lines and roads and everything else. It's not a business. Where his wife was different story, but it was very like that. And there were 2 small factories. One barley malting plant belonging to breweries, and one shed belonging to a pharmaceutical company that puts Panadol in bottles there. And an office. All this talk about influence, all this high-fluting stuff about creating the environment, turns out too small for my factories. If I can put in my yard, in my own house, I could actually do both of those things. What's wrong? We supposedly are following the Chinese model. Chinese set up these empresses, Japanese can only invest in things to the north, like a rocket. Instead, we are sitting there with bits of bush and labor, and which are then obviously losing taxpayers' money, donors' money, the IMF's money, and to hell of a rate. I mean, there's no question about it. There's no connection. So, I mean, I think I want to leave it to the question of the listener to say why there's a problem. You find the same thing in agriculture. We heard the President's speech the other day. He's not going to put up with any more delays on these farm blocks. Go to a farm block and see what you can find. Go, let's actually get in get in the Galimoto, and we go and go to Tanzania and it's a huge area being cleared with caterpillars and chains. There's irrigation canals, there's dams, there's power lines, there's bridges, there's this and there's not a damn hectare under cultivation. Not one. Unless it happens in some The whole thing is just outpriced. You try to bring the private sector in. The private sector is not interested because they didn't set the conditions. They find it much cheaper to talk to the chief and go and start clearing from scratch some of these forests and to pay the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Finance, all the money they're asking for to take care of this. So, I mean, these are just some of the facts. And the basic thing is you can't eat what you can't produce. That's true whether you're a socialist on a Labour Party, or a capitalist on a B. It doesn't matter what you are, you can't eat what you haven't produced. You can eat on Congola, yes, but you still have to produce it. And you can get away with some forgiveness. Get some free, something to eat, but even that doesn't last. And we have to in this country. I think everyone's agreed. This is the good news. Everyone has spoken about this recent collapse agrees we are not producing anything except copper. Therefore, we're extremely sensitive to when the copper collapses. And everyone agrees we have to produce, we have to diversify, we have to diversify. So let's do it, but in order to do it, we have to get our heads straight. We can't say, yes, we will just make a big emphasis. Go and look at the emphasis and see what you can get out of it. Go and look at your farm. That's not what's missing. All the farms in Zambia have been created by private sector directly. All the emphasis, all the industrial areas in Zambia have been put there by the private sector. What does government want to do now? It's part of this game of creating capital. So with those few words, I'm looking forward very much to hearing.
Well, we're eager to hear everybody, of course, give their statements, and already we had interesting positions being shared. And we move on to the Deputy Minister, State House, Mr. Satontos, will just give us some remarks.
Morning. I will stand so that I can see everybody that I'm addressing. I think it's better that I read my official statement before I make my own remarks, so that I don't stray too far from the government position. I have just a few remarks about the current environment in Zambia for entrepreneurs. For any country to prosper in social and economic development, entrepreneurship is a vital catalyst. Job creation and wealth creation are dependent upon citizenry empowered small and medium enterprises aimed at fostering and enhancing economic development. Our government, under the leadership of His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chabalungu, remains resolute in ensuring that the citizens of Zambia are empowered in an effort to ensure that they drive the country's economy through SMEs. Our nation's political stability provides an enabling environment for SMEs to thrive. Despite this, other challenges impede the growth of our SMEs. Currently, we are aware of how our small businesses such as bakeries, welding shops, and salons, among others, have been negatively affected by the power shortage. Our efforts as government to address the power deficit both in the short term and long term will definitely propel the growth of SMEs. During Zambia's 5th session of the 11th National Assembly on 18th September 2015, His Excellency Mr. Lungu highlighted one of the challenges that face our SMEs as access to capital, hence his call for affordable capital by our Ministry of Finance devising measures for long-term financing at affordable rates. The role of the private sector in the growth of our SMEs is equally vital, hence the need for partnership with government to help promote business ideas from the young people. The Zambian government is cognizant of the important role that entrepreneurship plays in contributing to economic growth, hence the need to ensure an enabling environment for SMEs to thrive, and our focus on becoming a net exporter of our products in various sectors. This will entail easy access to capital, facilitation of markets both locally and abroad, and restriction on importation of certain goods and services. Affordable capital, access to entrepreneurial skills, and the promotion of value addition to our goods and abundant raw material. This will require a rethink and redirection of the major incentives previously reserved for the promotion of foreign direct investment. The refocused strategy will include the deliberate promotion and enforcement of partnerships by foreign investors with local entrepreneurs on one hand, and the redirection of similar incentives for local investors, entrepreneurs, and industry that is adding value to our goods and services on the other hand. So now I can speak. Before I speak, I'd just like to give a bit of a background on myself. Before I joined politics, I was an engineering consultant, but I also dabbled in business informally. It was not my main thing. I've studied, I did my tertiary education in the States at UCLA. I went to school in the region. I went to school in Botswana called Marokko, and I went to school in Swaziland. I mentioned Botswana because I have seen how Botswana has evolved from when I first went there in 1980 as Form 1 to how it is now. And I've seen how Zambia has developed. I know the relationship that Zambia had with Botswana, the number of Zambian professionals that were in Botswana, from which they built up their skill set. And I look at where we are now, and we're poles apart. Botswana, with its little population of 2 million, I would say, has a bigger formal sector, private sector, than we have in Zambia. Botswana, with its population of 2 million, has a bigger retail banking sector. I'm sure Noel will agree. I've met people from Stanchart, I've met people from Stanbic, Standard Bankers and so on there. And it has changed. I have a roommate, and these are personal examples, a person I used to share a room with, who is running a private equity fund in Gaborone of $500 million. He came to Zambia not too long ago and was looking for projects. And our challenge here is that we weren't thinking big enough. I spoke to a good friend of mine, Sipo. You need to come up with a project. He said, okay, I've got $1 million. I said, guys, $1 million, I can't do anything with it, because the cost of putting together a project, whether it's $100 million, $1 million, is more or less the same. So Little Botswana, from when I was there, is now looking to invest in Zambia. One of my juniors, when I was in Form 4, he was in Form 1. He was also working as a consultant, got the Botswana franchise of Barrow B, and ventured into contract mining. They got a contract of $500 million that he got as a junior partner with 15-20% equity. From that contract, they were able to borrow or to get lease financing to finance their end of their contribution to the project. So as we speak now, they've got 20 100-ton trucks and drill rigs and whatnot. Now, these are the sort of success stories that we need in Zambia, which unfortunately we do not have. I've spoken to Caesar about how we could get our market more liquid. Just over the weekend, I was speaking to a colleague that shall remain nameless, and he has been trying to offload his 300,000 kwacha of shares in a certain cement company for the last 3 weeks, and he's got no takers. You know, it shows that there's a problem in our country. We need to evolve. We need to get rid of, we need to move beyond this bazaar mentality that, bazaar, not bizarre. You know, this marketplace mentality that is prevalent in our CBD. We need to, reap the benefits of all this great and grand education that we are exposed to. So that is what we would like. So that's what I would like to see happening in Zambia. And I think I made a statement in Parliament, almost got me in trouble, but I think the role of government is to create the environment and get out of the way. It really shouldn't matter who is in power. The private sector should be able to thrive. And I look forward to that day. I mean, that is the cry of business people I interact with, and that is at a higher level, and also the people, welding tank stands in Kalingalinga. So I look forward to this debating more in this particular issue, and I share the frustrations of Dr. Scott as, in terms of the way we go about some of the things. And I think one of the ways that we can actually move things along much faster is just to get involved. After the agricultural show, I bought 30 goats. So those 30 goats have been giving birth, so I've now got 40 goats. So that's my little contribution to
Access the discussions into a more interesting, and I hope you're putting your comments and questions together, because we'll all have an opportunity, at least most of that. But at least you have an opportunity to share your thoughts with us on what we discussed today. And if you can a little later, we are discussing entrepreneurship, and primarily we're trying to look at how we can make entrepreneurship in Zambia more viable, because it's been a story for a very long time. How can we make changes or differences now? For the next set of us, we'll have the admin
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. So, enabling environment, that's involves many things. And you have to think about the challenges the entrepreneur faces, getting permits to bigger things. And just those bigger things, I want to talk about the macroeconomy. What is the overall economic environment that entrepreneurs operate in? And we talk about the potential and opportunities in Zambia, but I think sometimes we forget that actually it's not just potential, it also has been realized. I think we don't really need to look much further back than the past decade and the changes that have been taking place in this economy. Growth started taking off in Zambia in 2003, 2004. In the period since then, Zambia has grown its economy at an annual rate of around 7%, one of the fastest rates in the world. That potential was being realized. Now, what made that happen? A number of things. Copper prices were going up, favorable external conditions, but also some important domestic factors that I think it's also helpful to bear in mind in the current environment. Macro stability, overall macroeconomic management. This was a period where inflation was brought under control, reduced from over 20% to 7 or so percent that we've been at in recent years. Government deficits were low, held under 3% of GDP. What did that do? It created an environment where investors had expectation of some stability. It helped start to bring interest rates down, making it easier for people to borrow, and all that fed economic growth. Now, these are some important lessons, I think, for Zambia in the current environment. External conditions have become more difficult. Copper prices have fallen, low rainfall, we have the electricity problems, a series of things. But there is also that domestically controlled component that is important to maintain the strong foundation for growth, macroeconomic stability. There are challenges there. The kwacha has depreciated strongly. We have seen interest rates on government securities go from 12% a few years ago to well over 20% now. That's pushing up interest rates throughout the economy. It's a more difficult environment. Policy stability. It's important for investors to know what to expect. You don't make a long-term investment if there is uncertainty about what policy environment you're going to be operating in. So these are all things that I think it's really important to bear in mind in the current environment in Zambia. Yes, external conditions are more difficult than they have been, but the things that can be controlled within the country should be.
Thank you very much for your remarks. And on now to Director
Good morning, everyone. I think a lot of things have been said by my four speakers. They've paved my way, so I consider myself blessed like the Messiah, the John the Baptist. Now, the thing is, the Zambia Development Agency focuses on facilitating trade and investment and promoting promotion in Zambia. But most significantly, the WECREATE Zambia program significantly complements and supplements what we're already doing at the agency. I think the most important hindrance or barrier that this program will contribute to is building an entrepreneurship mindset or culture in our people. And that's a very difficult thing. Many of our people would like to do business, but they struggle, and that's largely because of the mindset, the discipline, and even the patience. They want things to happen overnight. And that doesn't, Ford, even Caterpillar was not built overnight. I think maybe even some generation, I think we have people from might share with us, it has taken some generations to be where they are. Now, 2 days ago, I was attending one of our local popular social functions called Ichilanga. That's where the guy is getting married, the family of the bride take some food to welcome the groom to the family. And I found myself in a very heated up discussion over the prevailing macroeconomic business environment. And I got a sense of helplessness and hopelessness among some of the people that were pouring out their hands. And I posed one question, one of the most fiercest discussants. I said, have you ever been walked around in your neighborhood, the shops where you buy from, the tiny shops? Who are the owners of those businesses? He scratched his head, and my grandfather was just sitting next to him, helped him. It's the Rwandans and the Burundians. He said, thank you, Grandpa. And my next question was, why are they in Zambia? Well, they left home because of the tragedies that struck their countries. They came here to start a new life. But they've built very tiny businesses, micro businesses, and they've succeeded over a number of years. What's the reason? Why have they succeeded? Firstly, they had an eye for the market. They had the right mindset, they're positive. Even right now, when most of us are crying, the Zambians, they've been resilient. And most of them are succeeding and so forth. Now, I think what WECREATE Zambia profoundly contribute to our women's is transforming the mindset to enable them to do business. But when you build, you're very welcome to bring them over to the ZDA. We will actually facilitate market access for them. That's one of my responsibilities actually, is to hold them by the hand, take them into ShopRite. We've got a number of small, rather micro businesses we've taken into ShopRite. We've got a number of micro businesses we've taken into Pick and Pay. They're supplying locally manufactured products. That's the future of this country. In fact, the current crisis that we have of the foreign exchange market presents a big opportunity. Last week, rather actually this weekend, a team of my colleagues at the Zambia Development Agency just came back from the Congo. We took about 10 micro enterprises to the Congo, and guess what products we help them take there, and we've built them. Very simple things like the cassava meal, very simple things like kapenta for the ambassador. I think we may not know what kapenta is. It's a small fish. That's it. And even things like the cassava leaves. Now, in the Congo, cassava meal is a big thing. That's their staple. And that's what we ought to be focusing on in this country. I remember Dr. Guy Scott when he was, I think, Vice President, even acting President, when he talked passionately about diversification. Countrymen, Diversification is about focusing on products like cassava. You don't need any fertilizer, you don't need any pesticides. My honorable minister here will have less headaches when we focus on cassava, because he doesn't need to be scratching around looking for money having big money to spend on fertilizer. Congo and Angola between them need 200,000 metric tons of cassava meal per annum. What are we doing? What are we waiting for? That's a low-hanging fruit. And so I think there's still more we will talk about as the discussion evolves. I'll leave it at that for the time being. Thanks.
Yet again, I'm sure most of us getting the idea that we know where we are headed and what we need to do. So what has gone wrong and what can we do to make things different? Find money for that. Are we okay? Thank you for that. So we'll keep the conversation going, and for the next set of remarks, we'll hear from a market player. And this is Rosetto's representing news from Metal Fabrications from Zambia.
Just tense. Very entrepreneurs. In my paying job, I'm the MD of America. And in my non-paying job, I'm the president of Zambia Association of Manufacturers. And both of those seats are very hard. Because everything that happens in the economy doesn't just make sense. It's what we're doing.
Hello? Oh yeah, so I was saying that in my paying job, I'm MD of Zambia, one of the flagship, at least, in terms of value addition to copper. We wish there were 10 more Zambia, obviously, and the copper that we produce in this country. My non-paying job is president of Zambia Association of Manufacturers. And I was saying in both seats, as the economy and everything that happens in boardrooms and in parliament and everywhere else, we feel it right there and then. And that's where I think the basics should start from. If you're a small business, very micro businesses that we're talking about, women in cuckoo and all those kind of things, there are various things that need to happen that basically will grow those businesses. But I think there are negatives on both sides. ZDA brought up quite a lot of interesting things that we don't do in this country. The very basic is on registration. The small businesses don't even take the time to be legally registered. The small businesses don't even want to talk about corporate governance. If you go to Pakra, you want to put your whole clan as directors and actually don't do anything for your company. That is a basic, I think, a wrong start in the first place, because that's why you go to a bank and the bank says, no, I can't give you money, because they can't see how you are going to use their money and grow the business and take it back. Basic fundamental. Secondly, what doesn't happen? If we give, even as a big company, we give a contract to a very small company, let's say textiles, garments, garments has been doing very well. I know one of the companies, one of the members, in the boardroom like this, the SMEs were complaining about how the big companies don't help. And so one member says, okay, we're looking for wetsuits, 2,700 of them. And there was a small business in textiles, can do that. Fine, deal with her. She goes to the office and said, I can actually only do 100 a month. Which big company is going to be waiting for 100 wetsuits a month? For me, I think if that small company knows about 10 other companies that do the same thing, why didn't they collaborate and deliver it to thousands? But none of the small businesses want to do that. They all want to die with the contract and get that business. Very, very fundamental thing that we can do as businesses ourselves. What else does it happen? We are happy to actually go and deliver to the cafe. They can talk about it, even if we don't make a profit. It's okay. They know me that I deliver to the cafe every weekend, every other day. It doesn't matter if the business is growing or it's not
growing, or if you are going to deliver 100 today and 200 next year, it doesn't matter. The name is Rosetta Delivers to people. We miss the point. We miss what I call the intention. We miss the money. It's not about delivering. Are you actually making money out of the delivery? Most of those businesses that we create, don't actually make money, and that's why we don't grow. Because we think, and then where has the Rwandese and Burundians come? Do they actually supply to Pick and Pay? But they're making the money. So why are we chasing Pick and Pay, ShopRite, and Spar if we are not there yet? Or maybe somebody in the space can do collections and create economies of scale to supply to those ones. That's what is happening. But we are all chasing to go and deliver to these people when we can't actually deliver with a profit. So, very basics. For the government, I think so many people have talked about it. It's basically predictability. You want to wake up next day to know what is going to happen as a business. Otherwise, you can't plan. Even if I talked about strategies, growth plans for the SMEs, they cannot plan if you are going to wake up the next day and say, oh, by the way, somebody drank all the water in Caribbean, we have no water, there's no energy. You cannot plan. You cannot plan if today the quarter is 10, tomorrow it's 12, the other day it's 15, and it comes to 17. You can't plan. The predictability is one, I think, of the basic fundamentals of business. Coherent policies. I heard a guy here complaining about farm blocks and all those kind of things. I'll tell you a story. Just last week I was in the Congo Road, and the president of Zambia went to visit some of the companies. And they start off with a very good story. They say, look, in Southern Africa, the best country to invest in is Zambia. I said, okay, wow, somebody at least for a change is talking. They said, because we don't want to look at Congo, we all know what the Congo story is. We don't want to look at Angola, we know the Angola story. We don't want to look at Zimbabwe, we know where Zimbabwe has gone, even if they're still producing some of the things that make it here, but we don't want to go to Zimbabwe. Malawi is small. South Africa is not as central as we are. If you are going to produce and actually send to the country. So Zambia is the best place. But the problem is, when you come to Zambia, where do you find the real story? It's all in bureaucracy. It's all in policy. It's all in. So the agriculture tells you there's this piece of land and here are the requirements. You'll have had to have invested this much, and get the land. Okay, as a business, you cannot get a land without title. Ministry of Lands, Agriculture gave me this land, and I have irrigated, I have I've spent this much millions of dollars. So it's okay, Each hectare costs you 11,000, 12,000. And then you look around, you know that you can get from a chief 1,000 or 2,000. That's why they want to reduce. So there was no coordination in the first place between Ministry of Lands, between Zambia who brought the investor, and Ministry of Agriculture. Isn't it the same government? Of course it is. But as a business, that is a big challenge. So you've come, you invested, and you are running around the next 5 years in all these offices. Get what paper called title. There is a problem. These businesses will be here 5 years and they say, okay, we're tired, and they go. That's why they are not here. That's why they come and 5 years or 10 years they leave. Because they come and find all now the distractions and all the things that we know best to do, not to do. We know how to bring them. We are very nice people, and I hate that one, sorry to say that. Because we are nice and we are basically saying, come and take advantage of us. You don't have to be nice if you're going to do business. You can ask Mark. I don't think Mark ever smiles. The guy is so serious. He wants money and he wants to push, and that's it. You don't have to be nice to make money. The Kenyans are making money. They're not nice, but how come they're making money? We are very nice and we're not making money, so what is the niceness doing for? Nothing. So,
And we cannot go and say, yes, come and we have plenty land and we have plenty water. Why are we not saying Rosetta Traveler has 1,000 hectares of land, come and partner with her? You are assuming Rosetta Traveler is not here, so those people can come and they can do whatever, and then they come and then you can't give them because the land belongs to the chief, because the land belongs to the president, and the land belongs to the Ministry of Land. So I think that basic fundamentals that has gone wrong, and unless we go back there, I don't know how many businesses can survive. So many people look at companies like Zamefa. I was telling other colleagues the other day, it takes even a company like Zamefa in a day to collapse. It doesn't take away. Because we produce, and we don't get paid. It collapses. What builds a business is money. The money has to come, you have to invest, you have to grow, and all those kind of things. If that money is not coming, even the Zamefa can pack up and go in the night. So basically, I think government should stick to facilitating. They should facilitate. They should take out the bureaucracy. We're not saying take out bureaucracy so that we can do, because if you take out bureaucracy completely, you are not checking. Obviously, we as private sector will also be doing all the wrong things and take advantage of that. But we are saying, do the correct things timely. Check us. There's nothing to hide. But if you are checking and you're checking forever, and there's really nothing to check, then that's a problem. So facilitate. Red tape and bureaucracy must go, and you let the private sector thrive. Because I know there are so many statements about private sector being the engine of growth, which I think we are basically pretending to say that because we don't leave the private sector to actually be the engine of growth. So many other things we want to get our hands on, such as the private sector just get to the fence and start watching. Okay, when they stop fighting, then we can do business. So I think those are basic comments that I make in terms of my opening answer.
We have heard from Rosetta, and I think some of the points she has made to the presence of Mr. Santa, of course, Mr. Makaseto, just respond to some of the things that she has pointed out. But just before we hear from them, I'll now invite Professor Oluwasese for speaking.
Let me start as well, because you might not be the strongest here. When I was invited, I was informed that we are focusing on creating an enabling environment, a facilitating environment for entrepreneurship. And that perhaps we have to start from the basics, and I'll pick it from Rosetta. Unfortunately, Rosetta too, you started from not the basics, but from higher above. And that perhaps has been the problem. If we are talking about creating a hospitable environment for someone or something, the basics is to look at that something. Who really are we targeting? Who are these people? After creating a hospitable environment, is the target group in a good state to be able to take advantage of that environment? When we talk about issues of opening up, we always assume that there are people there that have the requisite business skills, the requisite knowledge, the business attitude to take advantage of a hospitable environment. And yet we also know that the people we are targeting need the very basic information for them to take advantage of the sort of things we use to measure the ease of doing business. I'll give you my own experience. I have a sister, a retired teacher. She came to me and said, my brother, can you give me a few thousand kwacha? Then it was millions. I want to start a business. we discussed the business, and I gave her a few thousand questions. 3 months down the line, she came back. She called it capital. She wanted capital to start a business. She came back and said, "Can I get a bit more capital?" I didn't want to find out how the first capital was utilized. But of course, already I was suspicious. 3 months down the line, she came back. "I want capital." Then I realized that what she wants is not capital. It's pocket money. Call it what you may. Because then we assumed that everybody can be a businessman. We failed to realize that what we create in our educational system, in our training institutions, in our technical colleges, does not prepare the people we are creating in a hospitable environment to be able to take advantage of that. I have been reciting for the past 30 years as a lecturer, professor later, and then now for the past 15 years in the private sector as a consultant, saying the same stories about creating a hospitable environment. And among the things I would list is capital, access to finance, we need more infrastructure, we need this and that, we need better marketing. But later I discovered that even when these are made available, and there are times when you can have easy access to capital, the participators in the market do not have the requisite skills that are needed. So when we talk about basics, we have to start from there. Are we empowering through our educational system, through our training, the skills that are required? And it's not only skills to do things, to have a business skill, to be able to interpret the market. Personally, I'm one person who believes that money has a habit of being found if you have the right ideas. The tendency is to always think, no, we need more money. No, government must give us more money. No, the budget, there's too little of this, of that. When in fact, the challenge is that you do not have the right ideas to be able to utilize money, even if it's given to you 100 times your requirements. So when we talk about startups, I think this is really the theme of our discussion. Let's not all look at the enabling environment by providing them with the markets. Firstly, look at who are we targeting, and will they be able, from the information they have. So we should start. Ambassador should. In Zambia, perhaps, if you have to target us and target us better and make a difference, look at the skill space of who we are targeting. And lastly, it's important to segregate and discriminate. Let's not assume that the hospitable environment is standard for a big guy, middle guy, lower levels. Women is very gender sensitive. Women are facing completely different challenges in getting into business than men. People in rural areas have different challenges than those in urban areas. People who are in different sectors in agriculture are very different from those in manufacturing. You just have to be and understand that you have to create a hospitable environment. It's not standard. It has to be tailor-made to the different target groups. That for me is what I call basics. Thank you.
For the next session of questions coming from our esteemed audience, but I'd just like to pick up the conversation from where Professor Sasa has left it and students' skills and basically changing the mindset of people here in Zambia. I'd like to get your comments, particularly on the fact that we're talking about the education system and the influence that it has on us having a successful entrepreneurship. Where did the system go wrong? If at all it did, do we have someone we can trace this back to, and how can we move on? I'm particularly interested to hear your thoughts because you've also had the opportunity to be in government and process some of these things that happens.
I mean, the figure we used to play with many years ago in the tobacco industry was that 9 out of 10 people who entered the tobacco industry went bankrupt. And that what you're looking at, if you're looking at the existing farmers in Rhodesia, that the Central African Federation, you're looking at the cream, the small layer, people who are capable of doing that job. I mean, entrepreneurship is not easy, but if you have an underlying situation that makes clever people even fail, and I mean, you have to be quite a clever person to overcome what Rosetta is talking about. When people are messing around with the land legislation and the land system, and so on and so forth, often for corrupt reasons, but also reasons of incompetence. I wouldn't put the lack of training in Zambia. I'm very impressed by what some of our Zambian entrepreneurs manage. I would emphasize instead, and I want to come back now, I'm afraid, which is quite a pleasant situation developing here may as well handle it. In 2007, 2006, we had two things which were windfalls. One was Iping, where we had qualified miraculously. We have our institutional base in Canada. And secondly, the Chinese dragon or tiger or whatever it is, took off. And the value of copper went up. And the consequences, what we often see in Zambia, the kwacha at the time was $5,000 at the beginning of this. It was brought down to $3,000. No, in other words, it was an appreciation of the kwacha in the region of, somewhere around the place, and it was kept like that for about 2 years, I think, that President was president in his second term, and then went back to 5 and so forth. And that period, that 3 years, was 2 years in which the cotton industry died, the tobacco industry died, the coffee industry spectacularly died. The coffee was pulled out of the ground, thrown away. Agriculture pretty much died, except for subsidized agriculture for maize production, for privileged people who could access free fertilizer and so forth. And the tourism, you would find yourself trying to entertain a tourist, sitting in Livingston, which is my birthplace, so a village from my heart, looking across at some tourists on the Zimbabwe side, who are paying 2/3 of what you're interested in, because we've allowed our budget to come over 50. We killed our own diversification then. That was the worst time for diversification, and we haven't recovered from it. Now we're treating it as if it was a mystery. Well, it's standard economics. If your currency has a value, it does you in. It uses the real value of your economy, the real value. And if you allow it to depreciate as it insists on doing, even as we jack the interest rates up to try and call in the depreciation, we're at the same time making it impossible for you. And I'll take Richard Branson, who I mean, Professor, whatever you said, the man with the entrepreneurial genius. He was here, he stood in front of us, he asked you, what's the interest rate in Zambia? You told him, and he said, I'm off, I'm getting on my plane. You can't do business at that interest rate. So I think there are realities, numerical realities, hard realities, that we need to appreciate in this country before we start talking about the software, trading, and so on and so forth. If you come to training, it's the academics and the civil servants and the public servants generally who need the training, because they don't understand business at all, and they have to, because they're the ones who are facilitating it. I think that may be a bit strong, but
Well, we do appreciate your comments. I'm now going to take about 2 or 3 questions for the first round, and after the questions, I'd like Mr. Sata to start thinking towards giving us a comment on some of the issues that Rosetta had raised, and that is to do with police-related matters of relatability and, of course, macroeconomic stability. Of course, we'll come back to that in that. For 1 or 2, 3 questions from Mr. Koma and Mr. Frank, and I'll move to the right. So we'll start from here.
Thank you, sir. Hello. Okay. Mine is not necessarily a question, but it's a comment. And coming from the banking and financial sector, I think I would just like to more or less reinforce what has already been said by quite a number of panelists here. Now, I think Dr. Guy Scott and the IMF country has hit the nail on the head. Why do we fail as a country to be able to support the SMEs growth? And one of the things that I think we are failing to acknowledge as a country is one, that regulation in itself is good. But when you over-regulate an industry, you are killing the spirit of entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you why. If we happen to do just a quick research, from the time that the Bank of Zambia kept the interest rates, we have not seen any tangible growth in SMEs. If I talk anything, statistics are there to prove that we have had so many failures on the SMEs. In the newspapers every day, there are foreclosures, there are liquidations, there are possessions. So which basically means that there's something that we're doing which is fundamentally incorrect. And let me even just probably reinforce this statement. The Bank of Zambia, the government of the Republic of Zambia has not helped the growth of SMEs. One, if you look at the portfolio of what you call the domestic debt, 20 to 25% of the domestic debt is currently owed to SMEs who are suppliers of goods and services to government. And year on, you see an incremental incremental growth in the size and the quantum of the domestic debt, which basically means that government is suffocating the SMEs because you are failing to be able to release that liquidity for the SMEs to be able to thrive and continue to prosper. That's number 2. The third, we cannot talk about affordable capital if government is the largest consumer of the liquidity in the market. Because what that basically means is that you are crowding out the private sector. You are crowding out because government's consumption, or rather their appetite to continue to borrow through government securities or treasury bills or government bonds, whatever you call it, more or less 8% of that goes to consumption. It does not go to productivity. And as a consequence, we shall continue talking about growth of SMEs when we as a government, and I'm glad that the Minister of State House is here and Dr. Scott is here, we have to begin to address these critical factors which is going to more or less unlock the value that we should be able to leverage out of SMEs. Thank you.
We had another hand.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Tonga. I am founder and CEO of Power FM. I'm also president of the Alliance Francaise and Mandela Washington Fellow 2015. Mine is just a contribution on the part of entrepreneurs. I feel that as entrepreneurs also in creating an enabling environment, it's very imperative that we produce quality goods and services on our part. Why do I say this? I say this because every time you have goods that are local and international, you find that a lot of citizens would rather go for international because they're thinking international goods are of more quality. So we have a task and responsibility of making sure that we sort of like sensitize the citizens in terms of how they can sort of like help local entrepreneurs in actually buying those products and services. But again, for us to convince them, those products and services have to be of good quality. I had a point on the issue of late payments. I think as an entrepreneur, the biggest problem that I have and that many have is you find that you provide a service payments take so long to actually come through. So if the big corporates could actually have a policy to make sure that they pay SMEs on time, I think that will also, in a way, play a role in creating an enabling environment for entrepreneurship in Zambia. I actually look forward to the day I will hear a big corporate that will brag of the fact that they pay SMEs on time. Why? Because they want to support their businesses. Thank you.
I'd like to invite a comment from Mr. McDonald just before we move to our other hand to the right.
Thank you. When I was growing up in Zambia and at school here, I was born in Zambia, I grew up here, I went to school. I always got the feeling that Zambia was an inclusive country, and everything that we did was about including everybody. We used to have that saying, one Zambia, one nation, which was a genuine attempt to bring people from all parts of the country together. Unfortunately, today I get the impression that Zambia is exclusive, that we spend too much time worrying about who is doing what, who is behind this, who is behind that, and trying to prevent people from going forward. And I think this is one of the big things that we need to begin to change. We're here today to talk about women in business. It's about being inclusive. It's about including women. It's about including people from different backgrounds, be it religious, be it ethnic, or be it tribal. It's about all people having a role to play. I think that's the very first thing that we have to deal with, is we've got to be inclusive. So now it comes to women in business. Yes, we must include them. There's no question about it. They have a role to play. They need to sit on boards. They need to be able to make their contribution. They have to have a role to play, as do every other person. In terms of entrepreneurship, yes, I've been an entrepreneur in my life. There's no question about it. I've done all sorts of things in Zambia. I think the greatest period of time for an entrepreneur in Zambia was in the early 90s. And that may sound a little bit strange for those who remember the early 90s when businesses were closing down, when they were going bankrupt. What the government did at the time was they rolled back bureaucracy. They took all the roadblocks out of the way. And they made it easy for people to go into business. The economy had collapsed. Inflation was 350%. Interest rates were 400–500%. Why would you want to go into business? But the reason I went into business in the 1990s, because government made it easy. I built my first hotel in Chisamba in 1997. And it took me 3 months to get planning approval to build that hotel. I'm building a hotel in Ndola at the moment. It took me 4 years to get that through Zema. 4 years. Because I was not prepared to jump through the hoops that they put in the way. I'm just not prepared to do it. The bureaucracy in this country has gone out of control. It is absolutely out of control. The amount of rules, licenses, regulations that we all have to attempt to, it makes it impossible. And there are plenty of entrepreneurs in Zambia. I see them everywhere. On the side of the road, they're making furniture, they're doing welding, they have little shops. There's thousands upon thousands of Zambian entrepreneurs. But the problem is they're all in the informal sector because they are scared to make the transition from the informal sector to the formal sector. Because as soon as they become formal, they need to go to PACRA, they need to go to ZRA, they need to deal with cumbersome, unbelievable labor laws that nobody understands anymore. I used to understand how to employ people. I no longer understand how to employ them because I no longer know. Because the rules and regulations have got out of control. And I think the problem here is that the civil servants, and I think Mr. Mulenga, you made a fantastic statement in Parliament the other day about the civil servants. The civil service have taken on the role of policy formulation, and the ministers have taken on the role of implementation. Because the civil servants write the policy to create the rules and regulations, and the ministers, without looking at the documentation, take it to Parliament and push it through Parliament. And then we all sit back and say, but how did this happen? How did we get these rules and regulations? I think, Mr. Mulenga, the civil service are taking on the wrong role here. It is up to the elected officials to create policy. It's up to civil servants to implement it, not for the civil servants to create policy. And I think as soon As we can get bureaucracy and red tape out of the way, we will go forward. I have a plan to build another hotel in Lusaka. I want to build a huge hotel, 200 rooms. My board is telling me, no ways are we going to be jumping through all these hoops. It's a project that will generate 500 jobs. I can raise the money, there's no problem. I've got the site, there's no problem. But my board tell me, no ways. Because we are not prepared to expose ourselves to all these ridiculous rules, regulations, and red tape. When they're out of the way, we'll make progress. There's no question. And we'll bring all those informal people into the formal sector where they can make a very valuable contribution. In terms of supplying the big companies, I have hundreds of local suppliers, small suppliers. Yes, there's a need to educate them in terms of delivery, in terms of quality, in terms of being timely, in terms of adhering to the contracts that are signed. It's not good to sign a contract today and say, come tomorrow and say, but I made a mistake, the price has changed. That's very common. But if we can educate these smaller entrepreneurs, there's no question that they'll form linkages to much bigger companies that will help propel them into the mainstream. And that's what they have to do. I mean, Zambia can only go forward if its own people are the ones driving the country. Foreigners will never drive the country. Nowhere in the world does that happen. Foreigners are only a component to help drive the economy. And my final comment is the economy is off track. There's no question about it. It's time we started talking to the IMF and had a program so that we can get back on track. It's very taboo to talk about wanting to have a program with the IMF, in my opinion. When my business is in trouble, I talk to my banks and they help me. I might not like what they say, but they help me. It's time as a country we started talking to the IMF again. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So I'll take questions.
Can you hear me? Hello. My name is Mrs. Maria Lana Piri. My background is I'm in a banker. I used to work for Barclays Bank. I worked for Barclays Bank for 10 years. And then now I'm a SME. What am I doing? I run a travel agency. I'm in travel and tours. And then I also manufacture wetsuits, protective clothing. I've got a small factory, Kuala Safety Distributors. What am I trying to say? Where are we failing as Zambia? We are failing as Zambia because we do not love Zambia itself. We need to love Zambia. We need to love ourselves as a people. I came across this story which has stuck into my head for a long time and has never moved. One day I walked into ShopRite and then there was a woman who was moving a trolley and with a list of things that she was buying. She says, asking the daughter, get that? And the daughter gets and puts in the basket. And then she says, get the peanut butter. And the daughter goes and she looks around and she looks at the best packed peanut butter and drinks it and puts it in the basket. The basket, no, not this one. Go and get the other one. And she goes back, she gets confused. And then she says, which one, mommy? She says, that one. She picks up the Zambian peanut butter, which was not very well packaged. She says, you mean this one? And the mother says, put it in the basket. Then the child says, mommy, that doesn't look nice. You know what the mother said? It will not look nice if we don't buy it. We need to buy even the things that are not properly packaged. We need to have a deliberate policy as a country to help packaging, help the locals, the SMEs to package their products. And the other problem that we have, Rosetta, that was a good contribution to say that you had an SME who you gave 2,700 wetsuits. You know what? You give us overdose. Even Panadol, you take one by one. You take in dosages. When I come to the mine, I come to Rosetta and say, I want to make wetsuits, overalls for you. You give me 2,700. I am dead because I've taken an overdose. You have to have a deliberate policy. If there's 2,700 wetsuits, how many can we give to a small Zambian entrepreneur? 10%, 20% of these should be made by a Zambian entrepreneur. Then a certain department should be made by a Zambian entrepreneur. Because that way, If that Zambian entrepreneur did 200 wetsuits, she will do them very well. I will do them very well, looking at the number of machines that I have in my office, in my factory. And then after that, you give me 500 because I've done a good job. Do you know what? I'll even ask others to come and work with me. And the other problem with us Zambians, when an order for 2,700 worksuits is given to me, I go and ask my neighbor, can you work with me? My neighbor will say, in which account will the money land? I say, in my account. Citizens, you owner. Who will see the money? That's where we have a problem. We need a deliberate policy. If it's a mine, 10%, 20% of these worksuits should be made by the locals, by the Zambians. Then we can improve. But if you're going to give us everything, who will die? We'll get choked. And then the other contribution, the last contribution that I want to make is also, we kill our airlines, we kill everything that we have. For example, I did a group which was going into Kenya, COMESA conference, and then the Egyptians, we did tickets for everybody. But the ones in Egypt refused to jump on any other carrier apart from the Egyptian airline. They said if the Egyptian airline will take us into Tanzania, take us from Tanzania with another airline into Nairobi. But us, the government delegation going into Zimbabwe, no, not Zambia Airways, person Zimbabwe Airline, give us Zimbabwe Airline. We don't love ourselves. We need to start by first of all loving ourselves, and things can change. Peanut butter, buy the local peanut butter. Worksuit, buy the local worksuit. Whatever it is, the vegetables, the oranges, even if our oranges don't taste very nice, next time they'll taste nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the contributions that we had. Not so much of questions, but we do appreciate the comments. We'll try to be, I'll just request for the next set of questions that we can just be brief so we can get as many more comments and questions from you, our esteemed audience. I've seen a hand to ask this.
Thank you. My name is Mawano Campbell, and I am the founder and managing director of .com Zambia. We're in the ICT e-commerce space. We run one division for e-commerce, and we run another division called Busting Zambia. Really, my first comment is really a response to some of the comments that I've heard here. As much as we acknowledge, I think there are a lot of challenges I think our country is facing. I think one of the things that's getting lost in translation, especially for me as a young entrepreneur, is the fact that it can be done. And I think there are examples of people who have done it that I look up to, sitting in the front, whether it's Caesar, it's Mark. And being sort of a young entrepreneur as well, sometimes I get pointed out as well. The work that we've done at .com Zambia. It's been an amazing 12 months for us. For those of you who don't know our story, we were at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit last year. We were runners-up. We were at Harvard University early in the year, and they named our bus ticketing project the best new venture in Africa for 2015, and they gave us $15,000. 2 weeks ago, we closed a $500,000 investment from Kakula Capital, from Venture Capital, just to move our company forward. And as a 32-year-old young entrepreneur, it's really about moving the bar to the next level and showing that it can be done. And I think sometimes we're losing those stories in a lot of these debates, because I think one listening to this would probably just fall over and start popping Xanax, thinking that we're in a depressed state. And I think it shouldn't be that. I think while we should acknowledge the challenges that we have, let's also celebrate, I think, the good things that are happening. But with that being said, anyone who knows my story, it's been 9 years of brutal work. Raising $500,000 with the ability to raise more didn't happen overnight. It's 9 years of putting up one obstacle after the other. But we ended up doing it. And I think the prospects of what we have going forward will go a long way. So my questions are really twofold. One to the Honourable Minister, to Dr. Scott. We're talking a lot about enabling environment, and sometimes it gets dismissed as it's on paper. What are we doing practically to actually change that to a reality, so that the person behind me, the person behind Caesar, behind Mark, does not take 9 years to get to where they are? And then the second, I still have to refer back to the Honourable President's, His Excellency's speech around global youth empowerment. When I hear challenges being thrown out here, the challenge that we have, for me, what jumps out at me is, what am I going to do? What's my part in moving this, this country forward. And I know, when I think about how he got into the ICT industry, a lot of it was just solving problems. It's solving the problem of someone being able to jump more conveniently on a bus. It's about supply chain management using e-commerce. One of the areas we're really pushing at is how can we play a role in e-governance, helping reduce some of those bureaucracies, maybe through technology. We have the capital resources, we're more than capable, but I think whenever we try and engage with stakeholders, be it in elements of government, we get, we almost can't even get in the door, despite our many letters, our many knocks on the door. So I would like some advice from you, perhaps what I could be doing differently, or anyone who's sort of heard that call about global youth empowerment, playing the role, and not asking for a handout, but saying, I want to genuinely play a role. What can we do going forward? Thank you.
We have another hand just close to me.
I'm from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and I thought I should just make a comment to probably in our role in life and entrepreneur. Well, I think our role starts even way before the entrepreneur decides to engage and employ. Okay, and I think our ministry is very open. It's open to consultation, and what is really needed for people to avoid, all the cumbersome times. Probably you have to be summoned or put to the labor office to answer queries on how you treated your employees, on how you did not pay correctly, or on how you did not take into consideration certain conditions that should have been contained in the contracts of employment. Way at the start of it, I mean, you will not work alone as an entrepreneur. You need this employee, and this employee, of course, has the right. You have the right as well as an employer. But then I think both the employee and employer relationships should be kind of regulated. We're talking about regulation, we're talking about cumbersome procedures and all that. But I think it's very important that entrepreneurs are educated on actually these issues called labor law, because you cannot just use somebody and expect them to just go like that. Okay, so what is necessary for each and every person? You don't have to engage in lawyer, and unfortunately, this happens so many times. People would rather go consult a lawyer, okay, on how to come up with a contract of employment for their employees, rather than just coming to the ministry and consult. Just I think last week, 4 days ago, somebody comes to the ministry and they were like, how much do you charge for coming up with for attestation of the contract? Then I'm like, you don't charge? And they were in a shock, because all these years, the past 9 years, they've been paying some consultant, okay, 2,500 kwacha for each set of contracts that they come up with. And just the Ministry of Labour is there to offer that guidance. So I encourage each one of you, we are there and we'll give you guidance. I know the market, the labor market, the entrepreneurs and a lot of other companies are facing challenges, but NESAFAM were there to offer guidance, especially where you are coming up with, you want to employ people, we are there.
Thank you for making that contribution. We will try and just utilize the next 2 minutes for very short comments from your audience before we can wind up. We do have, our panel has got 8 people, so we'd just like to get their final remarks in good time, and we'll try and finish as quickly as we can. So for the next 3, I think I saw 3 hands. I'll kindly ask you to be on point, and just within the next 2 minutes we can get your quick thoughts. I'll start with the lady at the very back.
Hello, my name is Shavani Clark. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm very fortunate to have just been involved with Zambia, which was selecting, various looking at business plans, and I was lucky that my business portfolio design was picked. When I have spoken to a number of Zambian agencies, let me talk specifically about Zambia development agency. My impression is that it's set up for foreigners. And even when we speak about an investor, we assume that this investor is a foreigner. So what I would like is for the Zambia Development Agency, if we're talking about entrepreneurship and if we're talking about empowering people, what can the Zambian Development Agency do for local resident people? Don't tell me I have to invest $50,000 US or $100,000 US when it's now about 10, 12 kwacha to the dollar. We are not going to get entrepreneurs coming out if we're asking for a threshold, this major threshold. So what are we doing to support local production? I'm in the garment industry. Why is there tax? Is there tax coming in for all the raw materials? How are we going to support production? How can we compete if the imports are so highly taxed? So I'm looking at concessions on imports and concessions for existing. If I register with PACRA as an entrepreneur, can I get tax-free for the first 5 years as an entrepreneur? Like an investor that comes from China does. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Poleka Blewa, and I'm a technical advisor at Zambia's leading pharmaceutical storage and distribution company, of which Martin Arnold is also a board member. It's called Medical Stores. Medical Stores essentially has trucks that traverse the whole entire span and breadth of Zambia. One of our largest, biggest problems is how do we help that entrepreneur who's growing tomatoes on the roadside to try and get their produce into say, Lusaka or be Livingston. The issue on regulation or red tape is a hindrance to try and get that market. We talk about co-loading. The Zambia Medical Regulatory Authority does not want co-loading on the trucks, but we should also know that every Emirates flight that comes into this country is co-loaded with pharmaceuticals, food stuff, and the human beings that subsidize that cost. We need to look at our own regulations and change them so we can help that entrepreneur, especially women who are growing the produce that us urbanites need. But we need to get that produce into the market. So we need to look at regulation that enhance entrepreneurship.
You can just hand the mic next to you.
I'm creating gospel education and a development practitioner with the Civil Society for Introduction, and my comments will be very brief. First of all, I think picking up from the lady I was talking about how government can facilitate and help SMEs in this country. One thing that we've learned in the past with development practitioners, first of all, is that we don't understand the mindset. We do not know who we're targeting, we do not know who we're speaking to. Just in the definitions, first of all, if you look at SMEs, just the term SME. One of the things that you see that is constantly left out is the M at the beginning, the micro. Micro, small, and medium enterprises. And you need to identify what interventions are going to work and what interventions are unique to each grouping. Small and medium are at 2 different levels. You can't be clustering those together. Micro is also at a different level. So when government are coming up with policy intervention, we need to identify what is it that is going to be responsive to micro person, what is it that's going to be responsive to small and medium. And the same goes for issues of taxation as well. The ability for one to pay at a small level, the ability to pay at a medium level, are different. At micro level, it's different. So you incentivize accordingly. But we haven't done that. And that's one of the major problems that we have. And even just the direction, if you look at the emphasis, what is it that we want? Who do we want in there? Entry points, just the minimum capital to enter into the MFED. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was about $500,000. How many Zambian companies are going to afford to get into MFED? So those are some of the things we need to stand and look at and address. Coming to the general policy direction of the country, I think there again, we do not know what we want to do as a country. What is it that we want? Where is our comparative advantage? And what's the direction we want to take? Those of you that have taken time to look at our development plans, they're basically sectoral, each one doing their own thing. Mining, this is what we want to do. Manufacturing, this is what we want to do. Tourism, this is what we want to do. But there has to be some sort of multi-sectoral approach that harmonizes the sector. If you're going to focus on tourism, for example, even create an environment that supports the growth of that tourism industry. If you're going to talk about, we're now talking about industrialization as a country. But if you look at just the SME policy towards industrialization, you're talking about value addition in the agro sector. Agro is important, yes, but it's not one of those key drivers to industrialization. You need essential manufacturing, what you can call, for lack of a better term, base metal sort of industry, welding and so on, bring the people that we are talking about, getting how do they fit in the likes of Zambia and so on. So these are some things we need to start really looking at.
Thank you very much for all your comments. I think we'll have to wind down about this point, and would love to give all of you an opportunity to speak, but we have to wind down. And as we do, I'll start with the number from WECREATE. There was an element of gender in the discussion, and in your organization particularly is focusing on helping women. Is there an opportunity for the male entrepreneurs to also get support from an organization like yours? And you would also give us your closing remarks on that.
Thank you, Panifa. I wish to begin by saying that, first of all, if this country is to achieve high impact entrepreneurship, I think there's need for us to undertake very hyper-local approaches. And I'm happy that this discussion has somehow led to the issue of going back to the basics. And that is one point that we are missing as different players in the entrepreneurship cycle. I think we need to look at, other than just the entrepreneurial environment, the ecosystem, we need to look at the entrepreneurial aspirations. And we need to start with the entrepreneurs themselves. I think one big challenge that we faced, for example, as the center, is the issue of most of the entrepreneurs that we interact with, talking about the lack of capital, the expectations for funding for their programs, for their business ventures. But I think the approach that we take as a center is to ensure, first of all, that entrepreneurs have got aspirations where they're able to look at themselves and assess, for example, how investable they are. We have an approach where we talk about bootstrapping to be a very important element in any entrepreneurship program, looking at the resources that are available to venture into your business. And to get to that point, I think there are a number of things that, first of all, needs to happen. You need the necessary skills that are necessary for business development. And I'm not talking about sector-based skills. I'm talking about business development skills and resources. And I think as a center, what we're trying to do is to ensure we're sort of playing the role of a factory where startups and businesses pass through our center. And when they come out, those businesses should be at a level, no matter how small they are, whether they're small, medium, and so on, they should be able to reach a level where they're able to take their business to a level where they can accelerate their funding, they can accelerate their revenue, and go to market faster. Because for us to be able to measure the impact of entrepreneurship, we need to look at how a business is able to expand. What are the factors that will help you expand your business? And I think for all those moving pieces to fall in place, we need certain things to happen. We need education and training. And I'm very happy that there's been mention of different conditions that facilitate the growth of a high impact entrepreneurship venture, which have been mentioned here already. And what we need to do as a country, for example, is look at the different elements, the different needs from different groups, from different players in this entrepreneurship process. What is it that, for example, rural women and men need for them to venture in viable businesses? What are some of the expectations, the needs of women in entering a business, in starting their businesses? So even as we look at ways of formulating policies or frameworks that will provide supportive mechanisms, we need to look at the different needs of different sectors. And also, I think, as Jennifer earlier on asked, what is it that we are doing to ensure that we do address gender considerations in entrepreneurship programs? As a center, I think we believe that gender, of course, is about women and men. And there are different roles that different players are going to take in ensuring that we take entrepreneurship to another level. So all our programs are actually gender focused. We look at how we can foster the development of male support for women entrepreneurship programs. We know that women are facing a number of challenges, for example, work-life balance, a very simple and basic challenge that is faced by women. At the center, we have a daycare where women, as they come to access, thank you, I'll say this very quickly. So I think the globalization of entrepreneurship basically has given rise to an expansion of different interventions, different programs, and every investor, every government, every entrepreneur needs to be able to realize what their aspirations in this process should be. And we're happy that there are many issues that are facilitating, in Zambia, for example, facilitating the thriving of entrepreneurship in the country, and different efforts that are being made by different stakeholders. We're happy as a center that we can accommodate women to come through and access different tools and resources that will help them to get to the market faster and to, of course, generate revenue better. And also encourage all of you. I think we've heard a lot of encouraging statements from entrepreneurs themselves, young entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, how they've been very good success stories. And these success stories will actually act as a bedrock for entrepreneurs that are struggling to see how they can incorporate some of the issues, that can help to make the environment and the strengthening of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we also need to go back to the basics, like has been said. So it's very important that we look at the different role players and how they can contribute to strengthening this entrepreneurial environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. We'll have the closing statements from Professor Stas.
Back to the basics. I think it's very important that literally everything that we've heard here is important. The macro environment, the policy environment, the facilitative environment within which business conducts business. I think that's most important. The role of government has to be seen as facilitative. It's not the business of government to do business. I think that is fundamental. But most importantly, and I would like you to pick this is a takeaway message at this point. That let's not lose sight of the reality that the people that we are targeting need the requisite skills. They need to know how to register a company. They need to know how to produce at their different levels. They need to know how to market their products. And this is a skill that if they don't have, no matter how facilitative and enabling the environment that you create at the national level, you discover that actually there will be very few that will take advantage of that environment. And essentially what it means is that we have to change, especially at the level of training. And the training is not only in colleges and universities. We can actually talk about mentoring programs where you have big companies mentoring small ones. That information, that resource base is very fundamental for us to go forward.
Thank you, Professor. Mr. Lucas.
Just to build on what the Prof has just said, I just want to encourage WECREATE. This is an opportunity for us to network. The WECREATE Zambia program and the Zambia Development Agency. Going back to the young lady there, she's an entrepreneur. The Zambia Development Agency has fiscal and non-fiscal incentives to support micro, small, and medium enterprises. And some of you are actually seated here. I've invited you to come over to the ZDA and register formally. Because if you don't register with the ZDA formally, you will remain micro for the rest of your life. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a few young MSMEs actually that I would be in fact sending to Japan, courtesy of JICA program, to build their software skills, like the Prof is saying, and hardware skills. And that's very essential in entrepreneurship. Secondly, some of the other incentives are fiscal. You get certain tax rebates if you register for even up to 5 years. I won't go into the nitty-gritty. So if you remain informal, you remain micro for the rest of your life. The other aspect I just want to equally delve into, is there an institutional support framework for business facilitation? Yes, there is. The one-stop shop. In fact, the manager is here. Sharon, stand up. That lady you're seeing there houses BACRA, ZDA, CEC, ZRA, NAPSA. You don't have to go all over the place chasing to get all that documentation. You can do it under one roof. And so I want to challenge you, get registered, get formalized, and we'll help you grow your business. We'll work together with WECREATE. And so partnership is very important. There are a lot of programs, in fact, some of them funded by USAID, others by DFID, and a number of bilateral donors who are working in silos. And Mr. Ambassador, I want to challenge you. Please encourage your programs to partner with existing local institutions that will remain. These programs will disappear. You need an exit strategy in order to provide a continuum for development, because working in isolation or in silos is anti-development, actually. I rest my case. Thank you very much.
To Rosetta, and her closing statement will be followed by that of the
I think mine will be short. Everything has already been said. And sometimes in Zambia, we lose so much time talking than doing anything. So I think it's already time for us to go and work. I'm encouraged by the young man there doing business. Because as far as I'm concerned, as the youths, we are doing things different. We are breaking the boundaries. And the future lies in us. So many people wonder how I became MD of a $200 million company. I say, in Bemba, I don't know how many understand Bemba, I'm a if you do not display your skills, nobody will actually see them and buy them. And I think that's what Zambians needs to have. We are so shy to say what we do, or to display what we can do, or to market ourselves. And I think that is quite the biggest challenge and the biggest problem, because everybody wants to hide there, and we don't want to say things as they are. Some of us don't even want to declare political ambitions. We are citizens. We can be a president tomorrow, but we don't even want to get involved in there. We want stable centers, and we just point fingers right at the back. You're pointing fingers. If you can do it, why are you not there? So I think I'm challenging the youths in business, the youths in everything that they're doing, that let's start ticker those materials, and tomorrow will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick thoughts. So I've always been very positive about the Zambian economy and the opportunities here. There I see potential. And I think an event like this reinforces that view. We've heard, I think, a lot of constructive ideas and heard from some very promising businesses. So my 2 cents on this. Let's focus on binding constraints. What are the most significant obstacles that are standing in the way? And I think we can simplify it. There are really a few things that one can point out. I think in terms of the regulatory environment, this is a country that's full of entrepreneurs at a small scale, vibrant informal sector, but it's very difficult for that sector to grow, to become bigger. There is a huge cost in formalizing. It's prohibitively expensive and costly to formalize. Something can be done there. That's a binding constraint. And I think another, relating more to the environment we're in right now, is this is a turbulent period. It's one that is difficult both in terms of the external environment and some of the domestic challenges. So the emphasis now has to be on trying to provide more stability, more assurance about how some of these challenges are going to be handled, about the electricity situation, about the government deficits, how will they be financed, economic policies in general. Assurance, stability, I think it is key at this point. It's not about fixing the budget in particular, but it's about having a stable environment where things don't change. Otherwise, investment is very complicated. But I think if some of those pressing constraints are addressed, the future is bright.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the Deputy Minister of State House, Mr. University, for closing statements. And I think you can also address some of the concerns that were raised, because of the issue.
I've been given a reprieve by time. Looking at the state's time, I will not be able to respond to all the concerns. Suffice to say, I think we acknowledge some of the challenges that are currently present in the bureaucracy or the facilitation of business in this country. I wanted to refer to a statistic that I was given by the American ambassador was it last week and the weekend before, about tourism in this country. I was talking about Botswana earlier. What was the number we get in Zambia? Is it 150,000 tourists a year? Is it from America or in general?
Plurality is American. That's overall.
Yes. And Botswana next door gets about 10 times. 2.6 million, more than 10 times. Now that begs the question, what are we doing wrong? Is it the exorbitant visa prices? Is it the process of getting visas? Our local investor, I think, is currently here on social media, Dangote, bemoaned the fact that he, as an investor, had to apply for a visa every time he's coming here. And yet the British nationals that he employs just land and are welcomed in this country. But anyway, as government, there's a lot that needs to be done to break down the barriers that exist in government. It is true. It is something that we acknowledge as government, that we have a full capacity for absorption. There's a great deal of grant funding that is available that eventually goes looking elsewhere because we do not welcome it. We do not give it the attention that it deserves. And I'd like to commend the young entrepreneurs that are present, the young man over there. Congratulations on your award or your funding. I think there are people twice your age still trying to borrow that money. But the examples are plenty. I met a young man, Bob Diamond's partner, Atlas Mara. He's just a couple of years older than you, but he's trying to buy one of the major banks in this country with his partners. but we need more of you. And to answer your questions, what you can do, I think keep doing what you're doing. I think network more with other young business people like yourself, and hopefully we'll develop a culture of entrepreneurship in this country, which is not there. We still are more comfortable having jobs, preferably in government, if we can't get into ZESCO or ZICTA. We need more people out there that are looking to get things done by themselves and are really willing to put in that work. I thank you.
Thank you very much. For the next statement, we'll have Dr. Scott.
There's one thing that I've noticed, which we're very short of agricultural representatives, farmers, like that. I mean, we talk about the weak currency. We forget that what is weak for a consumer is not as strong as a producer. There are people, there's a complaint in the paper. People are exporting maize and they're doing it at an increased price. What do you expect? The question goes from $7 to that's what happened. And if I was young again, I once said this subject, I would go into farming now. Because this shift is a shift away, shifting over the people who had to be subsidized in order to keep their money and soul together for so many years. I mean, the FRA is paying something like that. It's only about $110, $120 a ton, which is way below the actual value in dollars. People are privately selling higher than that. Now, yes, of course, it's hitting the consumers because that's what it does. It's a balancing act. But at the same time, it's rewarding the people who are actually producing, and including the ones who are producing cassava, including the ones who are producing that. The Bemba ladies who stand on the road by cassava there by the Tazara Railway, getting lifts with their beams to go to the Kawagoe markets every year, are now getting more for their beams than they normally get. They're actually accompanied with big bags of beans. They get to the market and they sell cup by cup. And for them, the price is up. So we're not actually covering the whole economy. We are an urban elite complaining about our problems. And maybe we should try the meeting again, but this time with a more rural representation there. To say, no, we are quite happy, we want to expand. And of course there are risks. I mean, people are drawing attention, all the maize will leave the country. Well, it's not they leave the country if the market is forbidden to operate. If the market's able to operate, what they can sell for more people. So there's not going to go one. So I think next time, Ambassador, I'll find some congenial agricultural, not these one-minute shorts. Some of the more representative that there are. I think much of that, I think, the contributions, particularly of the producers, this gathering will be extremely important.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. And this point will have the last but not the least, and it's our host, Ambassador Jones.
Co-host. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that this sort of exceeded my expectations, and I think, as Dr. Scott pointed out, there's more to discuss, there's more to talk about. In fact, I think almost anybody in the audience could have been up here as part of the panel, and that's actually a very, very, very positive thing. The second thing I want to say is sort of a confession. In truth, I still think of myself as young. Galilean is blind. Maybe that's just human nature. I know that when I sent asked Caesar if he'd like to go to Nairobi, and defined him as a young entrepreneur. I got kind of a funny look from him.
Yeah, I know. But the truth is, we can't all be young.
So in point of fact, there are a number of young entrepreneurs here, Moana, and the rest of you. And I know who my target audience is. With all due respect to the esteemed economist, I think the target audience is Zambia's young entrepreneurs, who are a lot of who are sitting in this room. And I think that those are the people that the government needs to unleash and allow to be successful and to create jobs and human growth. And my final comment I would say is that we have this expression in the United States that the crisis is too good an opportunity to waste. And in fact, I think this is a moment when the government really needs to take action and needs to fix what's wrong with the enabling environment to allow young entrepreneurs and not so young entrepreneurs to succeed. Thank you very much.
Well, here's where we're going to conclude further end our discussion. I'd like to thank you very much for having the time to be part of this discussion, most importantly for the contributions that you made. I think it would be okay for us to give ourselves a round of applause for this. I'll probably conclude like I'm wrapping up the news and say for me, Kanyurenda, bye, and God bless you.